to be a millionaire in all 6 aspects of health. That's right. Every week, we share tips on how to improve your physical, mental, social, spiritual, financial, and like today's episode, your intellectual health. Today, we're focusing on how to improve your intellectual health by trying new things. If you have never seen Millionaires Are Made, this is the show built on the fundamental belief that every person you meet knows something you don't, and that there's something to be learned from everyone in this big, beautiful world. Today, we are shooting from the Dominican Republic, a little on tour here. At Millionaires Are Made, we're still on a mission to teach the world how to grow into the healthiest, happiest millionaires in all 6 aspects of health. And we believe that it's easier to teach a man how to fish, and we are here to teach the world how to catch their ultimate self. So we went out and got 3 awesome guests to give you 3 awesome tips on how to improve your intellectual health by trying new things. And in the spirit of authenticity, we don't talk about tips or advice beforehand. So when the guests come on and tell you their piece of advice, it's going to be the first time we hear it as well. Going to be an exciting show. Have a couple new guests, and we have some returners. Audience, this is an interactive show, so please don't forget to leave comments, ask questions. We do ask them live on air for you, so our guests can get you that way. Real quick, we'll shout out a couple of our followers, because in this day and age, that's what drives this entire show. So thank you so much on Facebook, Danny, Instagram, Ryan Strickland, TikTok, Maria Gonzalez, and YouTube, the Total Freedom Network. Thank you guys so much. If you want to be a guest on our show, we're going to drop that link right now. We love guests so much. We need more and more and more. Everyone in the world at some point needs to be a guest on our show. So if you haven't yet, please sign up now. And maybe you're going through something a little tough. Maybe you're spiritually lost. Maybe you're financially broke. If you have a topic that you want us to go out, we will find 3 guests to give you 3 pieces of advice to hopefully get you through that rut in life. All right, a couple last things before we get the show on the road. We do free growth consultations. I love helping and talking. We'll drop that link right now. Sign up. Let's talk, hang out. I'll share all the knowledge I have with you. It's completely free. I just love to help and watch you grow. Merchandise. If you love our show, which obviously everyone does, feel free to grab a shirt or a hat and go rep it all around the world. And the last thing before we go to our first guest is going to be our sponsors. This show is brought to you by Brian Wright. If you want to get your brand in front of high-level entrepreneurs and personal growth leaders, reach out to Brian at the Ultimate Achievers magazine. This guy's amazing at getting you published, helping you publish your first book or second book or third book. He hosts a magazine and an awesome podcast, a great guy to get involved with. Our next sponsor is Sarah Jones, who lived a life of debt in a crappy marriage and at some point had enough, revamped everything, and now lives super happy with her husband, traveling the U.S. in a 80-foot RV combo. And now they teach how to build fundamental financial health and how to keep up with the Joneses. Our next sponsor is BizBuy, right? A matchmaking service for people who love buying and selling businesses. They find cash flowing businesses, vet them with AI wizardry, and connect buyers and sellers faster than you can say due diligence. Go check BizBuy right now. And our last sponsor for this episode is Francine Julin, who is a veteran turned into an author and inspires families to explore mindfulness together. Her book, her podcast, and her book spark confidence, calm, and connection for kids and parents alike. Go check out Francine and say hello. And without further ado, that brings us to our first guest, our beautiful friend, Jeremy. Jeremy, can you tell us, who are you?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Jeremy, lead like a king, founder, men's consultant. If you got problems, I got solutions, like a ladder to climb on the roof versus a chair, hoping and praying.
Oh, Jeremy, I love when you're on. Thank you for coming back as well.
Absolutely.
Important question for you. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health with trying new things, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
Yeah, do something that makes you feel incompetent.
Ooh, okay. Why?
Because, right, there's a great quote from Picasso. He says, I'm always doing impossible things. That's how I get to do them. Everything that you want to learn or grow and expand, there's some area of ignorance or innocence, right? If this is what you know, That's what you don't know. But if this is what you know, that is what, oh crap, it went off camera. That's what you don't know. Right. And so it's like where you're going to get your growth is at the edge of your comfort zone. Obviously, don't jump out of your comfort zone and something that could kill you and terrify you, but something that makes you lean out of your comfort zone. That's where you're going to find your growth. And so if you do something that you are incompetent at, cool, grow it until you actually become competent, and then you can build from there. Right. This past Saturday, I was at a mastermind and we went waveboarding, and I was up for 6 seconds, immediately just up and crash. And then like after my fifth or sixth crash, the longest clip I've got is like 50 seconds of just like rolling with it. And they were like, whoa. And I'm all like, whoa, because fairly decent body experience, being a kung fu master and everything. But you got to get out of that comfort zone and crash, right? And I could have been in my head and been like, "Oh, but I'm better than this, and I know this, and blah blah blah." Nah, nerf that. Get in the water, splash around, have fun.
I love it. All right, so you tried a new thing. This is a
I
perfect
did,
episode for you.
absolutely.
Okay, how do you feel afterwards now?
Like it's awesome because it's one thing like if you live inside your head and you're like, oh, you think maybe I blah blah blah, like what's your identity, what are you really made of, what are you really skilled at? It's all theory, right? And in our kung fu system we talk about the tiger and the dragon. The dragon is the wisdom, it's the mind, it's the invisible, and it's the theory, and that's fantastic. But then you got to put the tiger out there, you got to put it into action, put the body to work, and can you walk your talk? And part of that is, nah, I have no idea what I'm doing. As long as I don't die, I'll learn something, I'll improve, let's go play. And that willingness to engage, right? You watch people as they get older, they get more and more stiff and more rigid. There's a falling safely class that I teach. I put it online because my mom fell and smashed her head and had a traumatic brain injury and 2 years of her life and $500,000 in physical therapy and blah, blah, blah. So I created I created a workshop on here's how to fall safely. And then I taught it to people up to 94 years old. And what was really interesting is when the mind starts to get stuck, the body gets stuck. And if you can stay relaxed and supple and keep your joints moving, right? Then when you start to fall, you catch your balance. But I asked the audience, like, how many of you practice losing your balance and recovering it? None. How many of you sit on the floor and play with your grandkids? Almost none. Well, does it make sense if you fall? You're going a place you're not used to. You're going to resist and straighten your arms, and hard, crunchy, pokey stuff when it hits the ground breaks. But if we're relaxed, and that's really for me, that mental piece is like the body becomes a playground of the mind. If you want your mind to grow, throw your body into the experience and learn, do something. And it was the coolest thing because I'm like, I don't know. We'll see how I do on this because I have no concept. 6 seconds. I was up. I didn't get fully stood up. The board shot out from underneath me, hit the ground, and I was laughing. And because of my falling safely, I like did some really cool crashes. And like I had everybody on the boat laughing because like I was doing a flip off the board and I did like a dead thing and like my whole body hit and they were like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I'm like giggling in the water. I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I know how to fall. It's
Uh,
cool."
how many times did it take you to get up before you finally had some sort of success?
It was the second time.
Oh,
That first
oh,
one though
okay.
was such a
All
learning
right,
curve because it
Jeremy.
was like
Thank you.
your weight's too well. I had
God.
expert. No, well, two things. One, I had expert coaching, and I listened to my coach. And number two, the day before, they
Ooh.
got an 86-year-old up on the board. So if he can do it at 86, I can do it at 50. Let's go.
Okay, perfect. All right, Jeremy, where did you learn this advice in your life journey?
Really, it was kung fu, right? Because I was angry as a teenager, and I lived in my head, and I was super judgmental and super angry. And then I went into Ming's martial arts, started studying Shaolin Wing Chun. And it's really hard to be intellectually dominant when you've got a room full of people that could just kick your butt and not even breathe. Like they don't even notice they kicked your butt. And it was like that's massively humbling and really exciting because like look at how much room there is to grow. And if they can do it, I'm not a dumb guy. I could probably figure it out. And that's what helped me to grow and mature and actually like get out of that ego and that defensiveness and that fear. So yeah, I learned this like 30 years ago.
Nice. Awesome, Jeremy. We're going to move on to our next guest and bring out Marie. Thank you for your insight. We'll see you later on in the show. So next up, we've got Marie. Marie, tell us, who are you?
I am a recovering civil rights lawyer. Actually, I'm a yoga teacher and certified life coach. I was one of those civil rights attorneys who was not very good at taking care of myself and was falling apart. And my dear husband pointed that out to me one day. So I started doing just, yeah, he
How
did.
did he point that out?
He was very gentle, Austin. He said, we have these great plans for retirement, and I'd like to play with you when we get older. But if you keep going at this rate, we're going to go from doctor to doctor to doctor. So that, in a sense, made me start thinking I needed to learn something new, right? So I rolled out my yoga mat and I started doing yoga again, just 15 minutes a day, which ended up building because I started taking care of myself and it felt so good. And meditation for 5 minutes, and my blood pressure went down, my weight went down. I was a better partner. He will verify that. I was a better lawyer because I was more creative.
Bring him on. Where is he? Bring him on. We need to verify. All right, exactly. Marie, I've got an important question for you. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health by trying new things, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
Well, I have, similar to Jeremy, I have always loved Eleanor Roosevelt's "Do One Thing Every Day That Scares You," which is a way of looking beyond. Yeah, Eleanor was pretty smart, but it's a nice way of thinking how to challenge yourself and do something that maybe you hadn't thought of doing before. And the cool thing about when you learn something new is it keeps that brain active. It keeps us learning. It gives us different skills. It gives us confidence. So it's really, really a wonderful thing to do. And the scarier, the better for me.
The scarier, the better. All right. What's the scariest thing you did yesterday?
Well, yesterday I didn't do a lot of scary things, but the scariest thing I've done was actually I was doing rappelling off the side of a mountain. It was a very short mountain, but I was doing rappelling off the side of a mountain.
Did you climb the mountain?
Drove to the top and then ended up going up that way. Yeah.
Okay.
So at first I was terrified. I was clinging onto the rope for my life. And then I realized that I was in complete control of my movement. And I started having fun and jumping and figuring out how far I can go and how much fun it would be.
All right. Well, give us a little more insight. Where on your life journey did you learn this advice?
I've been thinking about that question because it's something I've been doing for a while and knowing. And I think actually when I was a lawyer and practicing, was terrified of getting into the courtroom and having a trial and looking at a jury and looking at a judge. Somehow Eleanor's "Do Something Every Day That Scares You" was really relevant because everything about the practice of law scared me. But then I realized that I could expand it to so many things.
Everything about law scared me, so I'm going to be a lawyer. Awesome. Right. Thank you so much, Marie. We're going to move on to our next guest, and we'll talk to you a little bit later in the show. Next up, we have Max. Max, can you tell me, who are you?
Yes, I am Max Ivy, known as the Blind Blogger, former carnival owner and equipment broker, and now an expert on digital accessibility, advocating for the positive benefits to help business owners and organization leaders to embrace accessibility and inclusion because it's in their best interest.
All right, fascinating. Well, let me ask you an important question. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health by trying new things, what piece of advice would you give me?
I think I'm going to go with, if you can get to the place where you don't think you have a choice, then trying that new thing becomes a lot easier. It's still going to be scary, as lots of people use that quote, courage isn't the lack of fear, it's being afraid and doing things anyway. But the truth is, if you can get to the point where you feel like this is an imperative, something that you have to do, that there is no choice based on who you are or what you're doing or where you want to be as a person. And sometimes that's physical, but I often find it also applies to things that I've done in my career or things I've seen other people do.
Fascinating. Well, where in your life journey did you learn this information?
Well, I grew up in a family of carnival owners, and from a very early age, you learn that the only thing that matters is, do you make opening night? Can On Thursday or Friday, can they ride the Ferris wheel, buy a funnel cake, and try to win a teddy bear? So the when you're brought up with the understanding that that's the only thing that matters, then you learn how to find unusual solutions, do things you're not comfortable doing. You will do things because you just have to get to the next day, the next week, the next town, and that's a big place that I've learned this about not having an option. And I really am known for saying that we can either choose to find solutions or we can make excuses. And for some reason, over the years, because of the things I've done mostly online, people have decided that if Max can do it, then what's my excuse? So, yeah. And I have a more recent experience that also brings this home. In
Tell
junior
us.
high school, yeah, in junior high school, I lost a lot of my vision. My voice was changing, and people made fun of my singing voice, so I stopped singing. And for years, I only
Oh,
sang if I was sure somebody couldn't hear me. And then in 2014, I think it was, I wanted to record a video for my website. I didn't know I was recording a podcast or a vlog. I just wanted to record a video to try to help somebody sell a piece of amusement equipment. And I needed an intro. And I thought, well, I used to enjoy singing. I'm still scared to sing, but I need an intro. I don't have the money to hire somebody. I don't have the skills. So I decided just to sing on the intro. I did a little bit of Nat King Cole's A Christmas Carol because I've given myself a goal to do it by the end of the year. And the funny thing was, people actually told me they liked hearing me sing. They encouraged me to do more of it.
good.
I started recording covers of myself. I started singing on my podcast and when I do public speaking. So it became part of my brand. Something that used to scare me is now a part of who I am as an entrepreneur. And then a couple of years ago, I even started writing some of my own songs and recording myself singing them a cappella. And there again, I I would love to record with musicians. I'd love to be able to make the computer sound like a band, but I can't. So, do things now so they'll help as many people as possible as opposed to putting them off and waiting till things get better. I record a cappella and people give me credit for that being raw and very courageous. So
Yeah,
who knows? Singing with
absolutely.
a band may be overrated. I don't know, but I've gone from being afraid. I've gone from being afraid to sing in public to being a singing speaker and podcaster because I didn't feel like I had a choice, and I faced a long-standing fear, and it turned out in a good way.
So you said you sing and speak, like you speak, you
Yes.
lecture in events. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
fascinating. So you like
Yes.
sing,
So
have a message, do a little singing, have a little message.
I usually sing at the beginning and the end.
Okay.
Every so often, I'll do a talk where I sprinkle it throughout the talk. Like I have a talk called "Life is a River: Overcoming Adversity by Continuing to Move Forward." And I'll start that off with some Garth, and I'll finish it with some Garth, and in the middle, I'll sing some of my own stuff.
Fascinating, Max. After the show, I have someone I want to connect you with that also does that. So maybe you guys can sing and do a duet or something. I'm not sure.
Or maybe we can organize an event and cross promote and stuff. So, would love the introduction, sir.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna bring everyone else out and do a round robin here. We'll bring Marie back out and bring Jeremy back out, and we will start off with Jeremy. Can you quickly refresh what your tip was for us?
Yeah, do something that gets you out of your comfort zone. Do something that makes you feel incompetent every day.
Marie, what are your thoughts on Jeremy's tip?
I think it's a great way of approaching it because if you are outside of your comfort zone, that's where you learn the best. So it's a way of challenging yourself and truly making a difference in your life.
Max, what are your thoughts on Jeremy's tip?
One of my good friends, Alex Sanfilippo, who runs Podmatch, he likes to say one of the best places to be is to be the least accomplished person in a room of very accomplished people. So I feel like what he's saying is great. Do things that make you feel incompetent, but do them in a way like he did, where you're exposed to people who are competent, who can help you become competent.
That's a good way to say that. I like that, Max. Yeah, you always want to be whatever you're into at that moment, whether it's your spiritual health, intellectual, whatever, trying to be with much more accomplished people. All right, we got a question from the audience here. We're going to ask. You guys can, we'll give all of you time to answer it. How do you know when you're expanding your intellect versus just staying busy with novelty? What a great question.
Sometimes you have to figure out what's useless to discover what's useful. But if all you try to do is get useful, you get really staid and boring and just closed off.
Yeah.
So play.
I also like to think of it as, you get a chance to try things that you never thought of before, or were on your wish list forever that you put aside, so that you can grow and expand.
Yes, sometimes people get so caught up in intellectual dominance and they forget about the heart needs to be in there, right?
Mhm.
I used to work software testing, and we had layer cake of software and process. Everything's built on the COBOL servers, and we had a couple people who could explain the entire layer cake. They would also forget to bathe every couple of days. Like someone had to remind them because they were so uber dork geek wired in a certain place. And that's not, I'm judging them. It's they were so gifted in one area that the daily trivialities they just forgot. So when we're looking at intellect, it's like we make the mind the master and everything else the slave. That can be kind of problematic sometimes.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is you want to have joy and other experiences in your life, and if you just stick to that same old road, then everything becomes a rut. And it's always good to get out of that rut and try something else.
What
Right.
is a grave? A grave is just a rut with the ends knocked off, or a rut's just a grave with the ends knocked off. It's like, oh shit, I got to do something different.
Yeah. When I think of the word novelty, I think of the word curiosity. And one of the most prolific writers that I know of, Elizabeth Gilbert, who is famous for Eat, Pray, Love, but has written literally thousands of articles and I don't know how many books in her career. And she likes to say that curiosity will carry you through when passion deserts you. And as her example, when she was having trouble writing the next book, she decided to become interested in gardening, and her interest in gardening turned into a 3-book series on how plants from around the world influence our backyards and stuff. So I would say the real question you have to ask yourself is do you need this new thing to be part of your business, part of your life as a full-time thing, or does it have value as a distraction, as something that helps build your energy levels up while you continue to do the things that you know are important to your health and also important to your professional advancement?
Yeah, and sometimes going away from a thing lets your unconscious percolate, and then like when you're not really trying to squeeze it out of your head, like the answer will come to you spontaneously because you relaxed. Versus, I have to have this breakthrough, and you're going to give yourself an aneurysm. It's like go scribble for a while and let the genius work behind the scenes that keeps your
Yeah,
heart beating and your spleen spleening.
Yeah, I miss
exactly.
coloring.
There's an app for that.
All right, we have another question from the audience. I have a question from the movie. How much of who we are is shaped by what we've never dared to try?
A good part of us can be. I mean, if we're stuck in that rut as we were talking about earlier, then if we're not daring to try other things, we're just going to keep going in one direction and kind of be boring, all over in terms of our brains, our health, our physique. So a good portion of us.
Yeah, you could think of fear two ways: forget everything and run, face everything and rise. And so it's like, how are we shaped by what we didn't do? Well, you don't know because you didn't do the thing, so you have no clue. Should I have said that word? Should I have had that conversation? Should I have gone to that place? There's a great movie, I think it's Sliding Doors, where they actually go through that story, and there's a decision point in the movie where one of the characters goes one direction, and another version of the story, the character goes a different direction. And they get married and have a kid, and then they die, and like it's whole life, and then there's this other whole life. And then at the end, the two lives come back together with a new opportunity. And we as the audience get to see the two journeys, but the characters don't. It's a fascinating, it's either Sliding Doors or Sliding Windows or sliding something.
Sliding Doors, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic movie of just how we're shaped by our experiences.
Fascinating. What a great talk. Let's talk about this. So I guess there's a lot of people that pride themselves on being consistent and predictable. How do you guys feel about those types of humans on this planet that do the same routine every day and feel, that that's exactly what they need to do?
I think that they are not living a full life, that they're missing out on challenging themselves in different ways. Because if they're not trying to do something that is outside of the norm, they're not exploring, they're not seeing what else there is.
I would say when it comes to consistency, that it is important to being successful in your business, but it can also rob you of the opportunity to do some of these things you've never tried before. So what I have learned really helps me is to figure out how much do I need to earn from my business, and then how many hours do I need to work consistently in order to earn that amount of money, and then to just schedule that many hours a day or a week, and anything outside of those hours that isn't an emergency belongs to the category of trying new things or doing things that bring me joy.
Yeah, I think people who get really predictable, consistent, safe, stable routines are fantastic producers. They are reliable, they are accountable. And that can be a very necessary facet of life and business. I also think that sometimes that can then preclude new ways to expand and amplify, because what if a new process or a new idea was 20% more efficient? They won't find it because they're not looking for it. And so they make great worker bees. But sometimes they'll find over time that their particular approach, it has a limited use. And when it's time to grow and change and adapt, how? Because they've never learned that skill. And so it can be a benefit, but it can come at a cost too.
The other thing too with aging studies too is we're like going into retirement and trying to figure out how to make our retirement fulfilling. We need to try new things, and we need to challenge ourselves in order to have that continued mental growth. Otherwise, that's when we start stagnating and dementia starts becoming an issue. And it's a way of taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, if you're either green or growing or ripe and rotting is a Zig Ziglar quote. And I think that's very useful. My grandmother stopped teaching water aerobics at 88, but then she learned how to defrag her hard drive at 92, and she was making homemade greeting cards when she was 98. So this is a lady who didn't sit still. She went to Egypt on her own. She went to China on her own, and her friends are like, well, aren't you scared? Aren't you worried? And she's like, no, I could just get around. You just watch what they're doing. And when they cross the street, you just cross the street with them. It's fine. Like she just had an insatiable curiosity to go do stuff and didn't like to sit around, and definitely did not like to be told what to do.
What about going to Haiti alone?
That builds character.
You know, this subject or a tangent of it comes up for me quite often, because I have people in my online community who are concerned when I travel places by myself, but I have told them that in general, I've never really had a problem. In the first place, a country like Haiti would not be on my list, because while I believe we meet the people that we expect to meet, and for the most part, I've been treated very well all over the United States. When I was in New York, there were places I knew not to go to. Here in Houston, there are places I know not to go to. But for the most part, I've come out very good by depending on the kindness of strangers. And I have gone sighted guide, which is where you put your hand on the other person's elbow or shoulder. I've gone sighted guide all over the city of New York and never had a problem. Was there for 2 weeks at one stretch. So yeah, the fear is there for a lot of people, and maybe just addressing the fear, even if your adventures are smaller than your grandmother's, is enough for a lot of people. As far as me, though, I find my problem uh, is not avoiding new things. My problem is I have too much curiosity, and so I have to push myself to focus in on things that I know that I need to be doing. I recent A host once told me that I had an addiction to adventure, or an addiction to challenging things, and I told him no, I don't have an addiction, but I am comfortable being uncomfortable. And that can be very good when you're doing new things, but it can be very bad when you're trying to sustain an existing project.
Very good point. Christine, comment from the audience. Please tell Max I love his perspective. All right, one last question before we go. There is scientific research that having more choices can make you less happy, and that the fewer choices can increase your joy. How does that relate to learning new things in your intellectual health?
That's a good question.
You can learn anything
That's
you
a
want.
sneaky tough question.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of that too much choice. Military family, we lived in Turkey and Saudi, and when we came back to the US, my mom went to the grocery store to get groceries, and she walked in and there were 22 different varieties of peanut butter, and she had a meltdown and left because she could not compute like what is the best one to get for my family, and I have to look at like all of them and the nutrition and the when we were overseas, and this was back in the 70s and 80s, there was two peanut butters, creamy and crunchy, done. So you just pick creamy, crunchy, move on. And so some of that decision fatigue, like when I was a kid, you can be anything you want. What's the thing you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, why do I have to pick one thing? Right? I've been an author, I've been a kung fu master, I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm a soldier, I'm a factory worker, I'm self-employed, I'm an author, I'm a speaker. Like, why does it have to be just one thing? And it's, well, you can't be everything. Well, how do we know until we try? Like, you can't be everything. You can speak for yourself, but don't speak for me, right? And that was me at 7, 8 years old. So I kept my mouth shut a lot at school. But three choices. One choice is not a choice, it's a demand. Two choices is not a choice, it's a dilemma, A or B. So three. Give yourself three: good, better, best, ABC. Then you've got a choice you can make, and when you start going past three is when a lot of times we'll get into decision fatigue. So go see if you can go back to good, better, best, and dial it in.
Listening to that comment makes me wonder if as a country we do our high school age kids a disservice by showing them an entire college catalog.
Yeah. Well, what would you like to experience? I think that's a more interesting question for younger people. What would you like to contribute? Also an interesting question. And then career can feed into that.
Yeah. And when you think about having too many choices, I mean, that they can always be narrowed down. I mean, that's the other thing. It's you can prioritize what it is that you want to look at first, and based on a category. Is this going to be fun for me? Is this going to stimulate me? Is this going to give me some skill that I don't want? So even though there's a lot of choices, you don't have to choose everything.
All right, guys, that's going to bring us to the last thing we need to do before this show ends. We need to come up with our daily challenge. It must be a task or series of tasks. It takes less than 5 minutes a day, costs $0, and is available to anyone in the world from the Dominican Republic to Haiti. That helps us improve our intellectual health with learning new things. What ideas do you guys have?
I have a question for you when you go to bed, and it is this. Ask yourself, what did I learn today that made me more useful, more dangerous, or more discerning? And if you don't have an answer, you still got 5 minutes, go read something.
I think that's great right there.
My thought would be to take your bucket list and keep expanding that bucket list. Every day, look to see what else you might want to add. You can cross them off later, but keep your stimulation going. Think about what is there out there that you might want to try. So pop on the internet, add something to the bucket list.
Max, how do you like those for a daily challenge?
I think they're good. I think they're good. I personally
Perfect.
would, yeah, I personally would ask people to get out a piece of paper and a pen and make a list of, starting with at least one thing, person or event that happened in the day that were positive. Find at least one thing you can be grateful for as far as taking a small step in the past or even a big past accomplishment. We often diminish our accomplishments the farther we get away from them. And it's those past accomplishments that can help fuel our future endeavors, our attempts to do things that are scary and new. And I actually like to say that a vision board is not as effective as it can be without a gratitude border. So if you've got a bucket list, what have you already checked off? Or maybe what part of one of those things have you already checked off? Because quite often things on our bucket list are big things. They take a lot of little things before they become a reality. So I would say do some sort of a gratitude exercise based on things you've tried in the past, things you came through in the past, and then use that as fuel for the things you have in mind for your future.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We're going to set you guys backstage and wrap it up. We got our daily challenge, and this episode is over. And thank you, audience, so much for watching. Learned a lot about learning into how to improve your intellectual health by learning new things. Learned a lot about fears and overcoming them. And we have our daily challenge. Think of something that you learned today that may, or yesterday. If you're going to do the challenge, maybe in the morning, maybe you think about yesterday. What did I learn today that made me more useful, more dangerous, or more discerning? If nothing, go spend the rest of your 5 minutes learning something. Add one thing to your bucket list or check one thing off your bucket list, and then write down something that you accomplished today.